But thank y'all so much for being here tonight for us to review our Daleville High School state report card. Like everything, there's positives and negatives to what's been going on, and we want to put all our information out there so everybody knows what's going on. Interpret the data that you're seeing in the newspaper and do what we've been doing. Digging into it, seeing what we can do better, and see the things that we should continue, things that we shouldn't continue, things of that nature. So we're going to go through, I know one of these ways makes this thing go. We're going to talk about what actually is on the report card, the different indicators that the high school is measured by, why ours might be different than a different school. We'll talk about that here in just a second. We're going to compare the last 2 years' report cards, see where things improved, see where things kind of stayed the same, kind of just see where that went. Talk about the next steps, things that we're doing on campus now, things we're looking at to try to do differently, and more things to bring in to help improve things. And then, of course, any questions that you have, I'll do my absolute best to answer. There's a few folks in the room that may have different answers or know more about some certain things than I do. So the first thing, we want to talk about the indicators. So when you see the report card score in the newspaper, it talks about the final score, which is what everybody looks at, but within there are 5 different things for schools that have a 12th grade. And that's an important distinction because schools without a 12th grade have a different set of indicators. They don't include graduation rate and college and career readiness. So only schools with 12th grade do that. And so we're a 7 through 12 school. We actually include all those different indicators. And they have different percentages that they count in the final score. Academic achievement is 20% of the grade, academic growth is 30%, graduation rate is 30%, college and career readiness is 10%, and chronic absenteeism is 10%. So each one of those pieces plays a role in that final total score. So we're going to go down and break down all those different 5 for you real quick and let you know how they're calculating all those different things. So the first one, academic achievement. This one is the raw test score data. This is what has happened for us here at the high school, the 7th and 8th grade Scantron Performance Series test, the AAA Alabama Alternate Assessment Test, and also the ACT, which is given in the 11th grade. So our score is based on that. And each test is scored based on how many kids took it. So if a kid achieves at the lowest achievement level, they weight a 0 and we don't get points for their score. As you go up the scale, the higher they score, the more weight that score has. But it doesn't matter, one test isn't more important than the other. It's all even. So if you have more kids take the ACT one year, that one is artificially weighted because you have more of those scores. On the other side, you have more kids take the 7th and 8th grade Scantron test. They take the Scantron test, that can be weighted more. So it changes year to year which test could be valued more for us. So if we were only a 9 through 12 school, the Scantron data wouldn't count for us. All of our test scores would be from the AAA test and the ACT. So it's depending on the type of school it is, that achievement score is based on a lot of different tests. And the test data that we're measured by on this year's report card is last year's test data, the 2017-2018 school year. And that's important because we're going to talk about some other indicators that aren't last year, that the year before. Academic growth is the measure of how the students improved over the course of the year. They use the data from the previous years, and with the Scantron test, we take a fall test and then a spring test, and they measure the growth through the school year, what's been done in the classroom from the beginning to the end. Once again, depending on how well the students grow, we get different weights and different values for what we're actually going to get scored with. This is also last year's test data, 17-18 school year. Graduation rate. Right? Graduation rate is not just how many kids are in the senior class and how many of them make it to the football field in May and get a diploma. It actually measures the students from the time they enter the 9th grade. So as soon as they go from 8th grade to 9th grade, they're put into a cohort, and it's assigned to them by the year, and they have on the clock 4 years to be a graduator or a completer and finish school. We do get some credit for a 5th year, but you notice it's a much smaller percentage. When they do the graduation rate, the 4-year cohort gives you 80% of your score, and then the ones that might not finish that 4th year, they finish through the next year, they'll get added in there, but at a very lower value. So through the course, kids comes here in 9th grade. They decide to withdraw for some reason and leave, and somehow we never get information back or anything comes back. They leave the state, go somewhere, and they never send for records. We don't have any information. That student can become a dropout. We're currently, right now, the portal is open for the graduation rate for last school year, 17-18, for us to finalize all that data. So we're inputting all the stuff. Whenever a kid transfers to Carroll High School, they're going to send a request for records. We have that form, we input that into the system, and that's what they end up, that's how they track the students. So if you've ever transferred in or you transferred out and we ask for certain things, it's because it's all about the accountability that comes up on the state report card. Now, the graduation rate, and you may have figured out from what I just said, this is actually the 2016-2017 graduation rate on the report card. It's not last year's grad rate, it's the year before. So your test scores are from last year, the grad rate is from the previous year. So it doesn't measure if you have a 12th grade, it's not a snapshot of the previous year, it's a snapshot of pieces of the previous 2 years. College and career readiness. The same cohort that is established for the grad rate is also used to determine the college and career readiness score for that particular group. And you hear this is probably one of the biggest buzzwords that's popped up in education in Alabama over the past 5 to 10 years, and really everywhere, college and career readiness. We want them to walk out of this school ready to either go to college or start a career and be able to do what they need to do with their life. So what actually gives you that? There's a few different indicators that allow someone to be college and career ready. The first one is benchmark on any of the ACT subtests. So everyone in the state in the 11th grade year takes the ACT. All the way across the board. It's no longer an option where it used to be just students that were planning to go to college. Everyone takes it. So there's the English, math, reading, and science reasoning portion of the ACT. And there's a cut score that if the students reach that on any one of those individual tests, then they are deemed to be college and career ready. They're not all the same scores. You get the link to the state website that we gave you in the letter yesterday actually will take you to all that where you see what the cut scores are. Some are higher than others. English seems to be you hate to say the word lowest, but it's the one that seems to be most attainable, and our students hit that one more than others. The math score is actually in the low 20s, which if you're familiar with the ACT at all, that's a pretty high score when it comes to something that could be used for a benchmark of this nature. The next thing is the qualifying score on an AP or an IB exam. We're not an international baccalaureate school. Some places are. We offer AP curriculum, so students that achieve a 3 or higher on that, they actually can then be deemed college and career ready. Military enlistment. If they go to MEPS before they graduate. We've had many students obviously graduate and then they go into the military, but if they sign on while they're in high school, they count towards this CCR score. So we obviously, we pull folks in, recruiters all the time that talk with our students because, it's a good opportunity for them to get out of town, get out of Daleville, and if they don't have college plans or they don't have any other plans, they can get their college paid for if they need that down the road. So there's lots of positives of that, and we bring, I think, just about every branch you can imagine in here to see our kids and give them all the different opportunities possible for that. All right, approved transcript college or post-secondary credit while in high school. So the dual enrollment classes that we started to offer. the opportunities that we have going over, working with Carol at the Career Center. And then now we're partnering with the technical college over there at Ozark as well. And we have students that are going to ESCC for classes. So we have a lot of these opportunities that are building up, and we want more of our students to take advantage of this, because just getting one credit earns them this CCR designation. The ACT Work Keys is something that's relatively new to most folks, but it's an industry standard test that tells people in different professions what our students know based on the level they score on that test. And all they have to do is get what's called bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So silver level gets them this designation as college and career ready, but obviously gold and platinum shows that they have more skills, and it's really skills they've picked up through time, where the regular ACT in 11th grade tests content knowledge and skills that have been attained through going to class. The work keys is just kind of like, oh, what skills do you have for the workforce? We're not necessarily worried about the book learning, we're worried more about what you're capable of doing, when it comes to finding information, using computers, things of that nature. And then finally, approved industry credentials. This is things that's gained through our career tech department and also through our partnership with Carroll High School and their Career Center over there. Here on campus, we offer the Microsoft Academy. We offer things through, you can get a welding certificate as you leave. We have kids taking masonry, cosmetology, drafting, all things of that sort that give them an industry credential, which also deems them to be college and career ready. So there's lots of ways for this to take place. And this is an area that we'll talk about here in a few minutes that we're really trying to improve on, because we feel like every child should walk out of the school with one of these, and we want to make sure that happens. But like I told you before, this standard also is 2 years back. When you see that on the score, that's the 16-17 school year, just like the graduation rate was. So it's not last year's group, so we're still working on that data as well. All right, this one here has been a real hot topic here on campus this year, because this is why. Chronic absenteeism. All right, the state is now making this a measure on the report card. It counts 10% of what the school's score is, and it does something that has been up for debate by folks, but 15 absences is the threshold that makes you be chronic absenteeism. And the state does not distinguish between excused and unexcused absences. 15 absences of any kind makes the person a chronic absenteeism candidate. And so this is something, Ms. Fleming, our attendance officer, has had countless meetings with parents about attendance. If a student gets sick, is in the hospital for 3 or 4 weeks, they're going to be deemed chronically absent, even though they have a legitimate excuse and reason to be out. Obviously seat time and being at school is one of the greatest factors in actually being successful in school. But obviously there are things that do take place, but 15 is the threshold, and it begins to count then. Ma'am?
And the 15 days started 2 years ago?
I believe so. This is, and the absenteeism data is last school year. So the test scores and the attendance information is 1 year back. The grad rate and the CCR rate are 2 years back. So, all right, so that's the 5 indicators for schools with 12th grade, like us. So looking at our test, or our report card scores for the past year, Daleville High School scored 72, a C, for both school years. We actually maintained our score from last year. Some things improved, some things are statistically the same. For the most part, one of the biggest jumps, our academic achievement went from 40.88 to 52.11. Almost a 12% increase in test scores. You'll notice that on these two, I put a W next to them because the state does have a weight percentage that they apply to both of these scores. There's raw data, and then there's I would say a normalization, maybe possibly if we call it a curve, that has been applied to things to get the final number that's used. So, but we did have a large increase, I would say, in my opinion, in our academic achievement. Academic growth, statistically probably about the same. Our math actually, when you go to the website that shows the full breakdown of the report card, math actually went up close to 85%, the growth through the year, which has been a target area for us for quite a few years, trying to improve our math scores. So we were very happy to see that. The individual math scores themselves went up about 10% as well. So that's a very good improvement. Our scores aren't where we want them to be, but they are definitely trending in the direction that we're working towards. Grad rate, 85.8 to 84. For our size school, less than 100 kids graduating every year, how much a student counts in the percentages changes from year to year. One year you graduate with 75 kids, next year you graduate with 65 kids. And so that number can change a little bit. That could be one kid difference right there, or it could be the same number of kids and just one more dropout at some point. The college and career readiness score, 61 to 57.4. It's similar to the grad rate in that the number of kids really, how much they count changes depending on how large the cohort is. But this is the number that we have to really work to improve. We want this number and this number. I didn't even touch that, I didn't think. Back. There we go. We want the grad rate and the CCR number to be as close as possible. We would love for this one to be 100%, but with it based on the cohort, there's still going to be the dropouts through the course of the 4 years that we don't get CCR ready. So we really want these two, though, to be as close to the same as possible. And the state would like to see that as well. And we've got some plans in place for that. We'll talk about it in just a second. The chronic absenteeism has stayed about the same. We've done a lot more things, I would say, this year to try to improve that. We're getting a lot of support from Dale County, the Juvenile Probation Office. They've come multiple times to meet with our parents. It's been really good having a lot of help with that. And Ms. Fleming, I can't say enough, has just worked very hard here at the high school on the chronic absenteeism. All right, so where do we go from here? I'm going to keep going backwards. I guess once you do that. Our next steps, as we've talked about in the past, those of y'all that have seen what we've been working on here, we'll continue our training and implementation of the A+ College Ready standards. That's a grant opportunity that we're in our second year with that. And without any other way of putting it, I feel like the increased rigor that brings could very well be what's responsible for our increase in test scores. That's something that we feel is going to help our students all across the board being part of that program. And so we're continuing on that as we go through our second year. Next summer we'll go to more trainings. It's all provided. They spend about $300,000 over the course of 3 years training our teachers. And because of the size of school we are, every one of our core teachers goes to the training. There's no somebody goes and comes back and reteaches it to everybody. They're getting everything firsthand. So every one of our core teachers gets that opportunity. That's something we've been proud of for the past couple of years. We're obviously looking to make sure that our classroom practices are up to standards. We've gone through state monitoring last year, and then this year we're going through advanced ed monitoring. And so those years, it really gets you looking at what's actually going on. And so there's lots of conversations taking place on campus about these things. And so we're really self-evaluating, because that's really what you do in these situations. Make sure that we're providing what we're supposed to provide. And what, like I said before, see what's working and keep it, and see what's not working and get rid of it and try something different. And so that's what our goal and our mindset is right now. The third one down right here, this is something that we're really focusing on for that college and career ready standard. We're trying to find more credentials that we can bring to campus or give our kids the opportunity that, the stuff that we have right now might not be what all of them are interested in doing. And so we want to bring more things in to let them find that niche that gives them something, because ultimately that's what we want them to do. they're not gonna earn a credential in something they're not interested in doing down the road. They wanna get something they're gonna actually use, because, you know, how many times do you ask a child, what'd you do in school today? Nothing, because it might not be something they feel is pertinent to what they wanna do in their future. You know, I've got a kindergartner, I understand, I get the same answer. All right, so, and then finally, the big one down here is continuing to work to get our chronically absent students in school, because we can't teach them if they're not here. And we need to have them here, and we have to do everything we can. And now, we're not talking about folks that are just laying out of school. There's, you know, typically there's reasons why things are the way they are. And we need to provide support and assistance and just whatever we can with the parents to make sure that they know that we're here for them to help them, you know, get their kids here to school. So I really appreciate your time, and I guess at this time I'll answer as many questions as I possibly can.
May I ask you this one question?
Yes, ma'am.
I was confused on your example of a student who starts here in ninth grade and then he goes, let's just say, to care, but more realistically, military kids go the
Yes,
same
ma'am,
way.
yes.
So who gets credit for graduating? Does he count as a dropout on this end, or
As long as there's a request for records from the next
from
school.
them?
And so they're there, once they leave us, and we get a request for records, they're off our books. They're no longer our student. And so, you know, it's a two-way street. We have kids that may leave before their senior year, and then they go somewhere else and graduate. And then we have situations where kids transfer in during their senior year to come here. And so sometimes we have to make sure that we help them graduate on time, because when they come to us, then they do become ours. And whether we've had them for 3 years or 4 years, if they're in cohort or not in cohort, then they become ours, and we just have to do our best to make sure everything's taken care of. And then on the flip side, we try to make sure that when folks leave us, they're prepared to graduate where they're going to go. You know, so, but once they leave, we get a request for records. They're off our books, and they're their student at that point. And then vice versa. Once we send for records and we enroll them, they're our student, and they're off somebody else's books.
So how long have these indicators that we've been scored on, how many years has this been taking place?
This is the second year of the report card. So it was, I guess, the report card came out later last year, if I remember correctly, than it did this year. So we started working in the springtime, and then when we realized how old the data was, it's hard to fix some stuff for kids that are 2 years back that aren't even here anymore. And so our big focus was get the kids here. We've got a plan talking about the college or career ready standard. Every kid takes career prep in the 9th grade. And since our business teachers teach that, and they're also the ones that do the Microsoft Academy, we're trying to push that Microsoft Academy stuff down in that career prep class, so kids are getting a credential in 9th grade and they're already have that CCR thing there. So that's a long answer. 2 years has been the measure for how long this has been going on. And so we're just trying to find new ways to make sure. Test scores have been around forever, and the tests have changed. Last year was the ACT Aspire for the 7th and 8th grade. This year was the Scantron Performance Series. So we've only got 1 year of test data from it. The ACT has been there for all of that, but so it's been a 2-year process. Yes, ma'am.
Last year was actually our first year, and it came as a prototype, which meant it was a sample, giving us a snapshot as to what, an indicator as to what we should be working towards.
So,
Something of interest also is that the assessment will change, it's predicted to change in 2020.
yes.
So your measurements.
The
going to
3rd grade
change.
through 8th grade test, because they take the same thing, 3rd grade through 8th grade, and there's a
Yes.
science assessment attached to that as well. And I think it's 7th, and the science test is in 7th and
Yeah,
5th. And so, those 2 grade levels, but the ACT is not going away. And then they also take in the 10th grade the pre-ACT. It's been called the plan at one point. Then it was the 10th grade Aspire, but it's the same thing. But I believe that's what they're going to use as well for the growth, to see that what they scored on the pre-ACT to the ACT 11th grade, that they have actually made some improvement in that. But that's good for us to have because it shows us, and they're giving it now in the fall of their 10th grade year. They've moved some of the testing to then, which gives you more time till they take the ACT in the springtime of their junior year. So a little extra time to see where they need some assistance.
So I have a question. I'm sorry. So you're saying what we fix now is not really going to show up on some of those things until the year after next? Is that what this is
Well,
coming down
test
to?
scores, this year's test scores will be on next year's report card. Last year's graduation rate and CCR score will be on next year's report card.
So that score may or may not change
The
next year.
CCR score will, it should incrementally increase. The small decrease this year could have just been the number of kids that we got small classes graduated, but we should be incrementally going up as we get to that point. And to get to the kids that started in 9th grade when we found out all this information, they're the ones that should definitely, by the time they graduate, it should show up as being fully implemented for those kids. The ones that have hit things halfway, anytime you change things in midstream, they don't get everything they should get, or it doesn't all filter its way through, unfortunately. When you have 4 years to get a credential versus 2 years, that makes a difference, especially if you're already in a certain path in your classes. Our honor students, they don't take a lot of the career tech classes. They take their path, and then if for some reason they don't benchmark one of the spots on the ACT, or for some reason they don't get an AP score, we've got college graduates. We have kids that have great degrees that would not be deemed college and career ready because of the way the measurements are. So we're trying to make sure that we don't let folks go out without that designation. And it's a process to make sure we offer what we need to offer.
Now with the chronic absenteeism, is there a truancy officer available or here?
There is, and we are following more the policy as much to their laws as we can. By the time they get to 7 unexcused absences, that's when they go to truancy court. But there's steps involved on the way to there. They get a letter at 3. They have a pre-warning meeting. We just had one with some parents where one of the juvenile probation officers came over here this week and met with them to go over what's going to happen at that point. But the issue is, if they're all excused absences and they get 15, they still count against you. That's the part that, we could stop all the chronic unexcused absences, but it's still things could happen that cause it to count. Now, we shouldn't be at 28% chronic absenteeism, by no means, but until it's all fleshed out all the way through, there's still things that cause kids to be absent more than 15 days that is out of their control.
We had a kid last year that was in a motorcycle accident, and so he was out, and even though, he was in a hospital bed, had a couple of broken bones, some other issues.
There's issues. Parents get once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to take their students somewhere, and while you don't want kids to miss school, but if there's a chance for them to go somewhere that they may never get a chance to do again, those days are going to count against in the long run. But at the same time, you have to weigh out the value for what that kid can experience. And we had a child that got to go to Europe with their parents last year, and that doesn't happen all the time.
And mine got to go to Cuba.
Oh, yes. So that's, I wouldn't even think about it. That kind of stuff pops up, and that doesn't fit the bottom line of what chronic absenteeism is. It's one of those things that, but like I told our teachers, we went through this during our pre-planning times. When you look at the weights that each of the scores have in the report card score, we're at 28% absenteeism. We dropped that down to 18%. That's only 1 point on the final score of the report card. So even on the CCR score, we increased that to 84. That's only 2.5 points on the score. Where we're going to improve our score is the test scores, what's actually being done in the classroom, those weights there, and how our students grow academically. So, but like I said before, being absent affects how well you, if you're not in the classroom, then you don't have that. So it all fits together. And, yeah, but it's, we're trying to get a good grasp on it to improve. And people are working hard at it. You know, I have to thank the faculty and staff for all that they do. Because and obviously our support from administration is, you know, we can't do anything without them. So,
Maybe I should know this, but what is the background on how we even got this report card? Any report card, the whole concept of report card?
it's, the short answer is accountability has existed for quite a while for schools. And Alabama has been supposed to, I think, create this for a while. I think every state has to have some accountability measure that's similar to this. This isn't the first time that Alabama's had report cards. Funny as it is, in my office, cleaning out a file cabinet a couple years ago, I actually found report cards from the mid-90s that the state issued from back when I was in school. So it's kind of one of those cyclical things that people decide this is good or it's bad, and you know, right now this is what people want to have to be able to show how schools are doing. And so you think about the whole era of No Child Left Behind and the AYP, this is just another version of that. All it does is just now we get an A, B, C, D, or an F on the report card.
Yes,
And that's it. It's all the, it really goes back to stuff that started back in Ronald Reagan's presidency. It all kind of started then, and it's just had new names and new versions, and it, you know. But right now, this is the way that it's portrayed and put out there. I read a book about all that stuff. That's why I can give you a long answer about the beginnings of all that stuff. A Nation at Risk is the beginning of all of this. The report that was done.